because at the end of that speech, I'm more confused about what we're doing here at the end of the session than I was beforehand. Let me correct you on what Wairiki Polytech actually said about governance. They said they wanted 9 to 12 members. That's what they said. That's what the people in your community want. And you're telling them something that they want something else.
Order.
That is exactly what they want.
Order. Just mind the pronouns.
I'm
Don't
sorry,
include
Mr.
the
Speaker. I apologise. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I sat through this select committee, and I will agree with my colleagues that it was handled with courtesy, and we listened very carefully to those who came and spoke to us. But the overwhelming impression about those people who came along to submit to us was unanimously they disagreed with this piece of legislation. This is bad legislation. And this is what they said. UCOL says it doesn't enable the communities to be represented well, unquote. CTU recommended 8 to 12 numbers on their boards. Wairiki, as I said 9 to 12. MIT says up to 12. They wanted to keep their community input. Without the numbers, they don't believe that they will be able to keep their community input. They did not believe that they would be able to meet the gaps in skills. They believe they run these polytechnics, as that member quite rightly knows, and that's the reason why they believe they need to have those numbers. Unitec said that 8 would impact on skills and their representatives. They recommended that their discretion to increase the number to 12.
Order.
The bottom line, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bottom line here, Mr. Speaker, is that there is an assumption here that somehow the system is broken because, as the Minister said, we have half a dozen polytechs which are not financial at the moment. The bottom line is, at the end of this piece of legislation, we're not sure that reducing it to 8 is going to fix it. So we could be coming back here in a year or two to look at the Polytechnic situation again and realising that 8, in fact, hasn't worked. And why? Because we have done no analysis. There has been no analysis of those 6 polytechnics and to see what the problem is. Polytechnics have said to me, Unitec in my own lecturate has said that they've had a 13% increase in students and no increase in funds. That's one of the reasons why the polytechnics are not doing so well at the moment, because they haven't had the funding to meet the needs. And Sir Roger Douglas talked about the need to look at the student and what was the needs of the student. Well, yes, of course that's right, but then he went on to progress about the need to look at the boards, and that's exactly what this legislation is here that we're looking at. Marion Street mentioned the fact that all of this legislation does, that we're sitting here today in the last session of the year talking about, is to change the boards without any analysis of whether that will improve the functioning of these polytechnics. I believe that that is a complete waste of time, particularly when submitter after submitter after submitter came through the Select Committee unanimously disagreeing with this piece of legislation. The Human Rights Commission, which doesn't even have a vested interest, said one size doesn't fit all. We have an extraordinary range of polytechnics, and yet we are restricting them to having only 8 members, 4 appointed by the Minister and 4 coming from wherever, from the communities. One size doesn't fit all. We have a number of polytechnics with multiple campuses, with multiple communities that will not be able to be represented with this new legislation. They will simply not have the scope. It's not about numbers, it's about management. And Joe Goodhue just said that. So why are we sitting here in this House today on the last session debating the numbers? It doesn't make any sense. It's about competency and it's about community. And that's the key issue, not about the numbers. What else did the Human Rights Commission go on to say? It says smaller doesn't mean better management. Again, I would agree with the Human Rights Commission. I think Alan Peachy actually agreed with the Human Rights Commission and even other members of the National Party sitting there feeling rather uncomfortable in their seats because people coming in to submit from their own electorates was disagreeing with this legislation that was being rammed down their throats. The other thing that people brought up was the ministerial control was worrying. They asked, where is the independence of these organisations? Where is the independence of Polytechnics to be able to run their own affairs, to be able to respond to their own communities, to be able to respond to the business and the work environment that's around them? That's what they were asking. And they also asked, why 8? 8's not a good number. Why not have an odd number? At least that way we can have a majority, rather than perhaps say the occasion where the boards could actually be 4 each and we would not be able to get a good decision. So this is a piece of legislation without any analysis of what the real problem is, that's designed to fix a problem we have no analysis about, and it's being applied not to the ones that are failing, not to the ones that are not doing so well, but to all of the polytechs, regardless of their size, regardless of their location, regardless of their makeup and their community involvement in them. That's what's happening in this piece of legislation. As I said, Mr. Speaker, there is only a handful that are not performing, and was mentioned to me that 13% more students and no increase in staff to support them. And as my colleague Sue Moroney also mentioned, the fact that these are being capped now to prevent more of the students not being able to get to polytechnics is the real issue. It's not about reducing something from 20 to 8. It's about good management, and it's about a polytechnic which is responsible and is responsive to its own community.
Just leave them alone.
Quite bizarrely, the Minister says in her 20th of August, thank you, Mr. Speaker, in her 20th of August discussion to the House, we are ensuring that in the future polytechnics have strong, skilled councils which will make them easier to govern, more effective and responsive to their communities. More responsive to their communities. I'm just at a loss to understand how you can be more responsive to your communities with a lesser number of people from their communities on their boards. All of the polytechnics talked about the value of having the range of experience on their boards that they do, whether it be Maori, whether it be from the business community, whether it be from the union movement, whether it be from Maori in the area. All of them spoke about the value of having those people on their boards. And now what we're going to be doing is restricting that responsiveness as well. And the Minister of Finance coming into the House reminds me of what he was saying today about talking about the women, I beg your pardon, I'll have to hold that comment, Mr. Speaker, for the moment. Lastly, I just want to say that the MIT proposal that is part of this legislation does have the backing of this party, although we are voting against the legislation as a whole. Mr. Stuart Middleton in MIT has done an excellent job. He deserves to be commended. As a former teacher of myself and others in this House, we support that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Louise Upston.